Beyond Reason Radio.
Yes, welcome to the show, everyone. This is finally another edition of Beyond Reason Radio, your voice of reason in a world that is beyond reason. We are on till 9 p.m. tonight, right here on News Radio 93.1 WFLA. But if you miss any of the show, of course, or if you miss any of the past shows, just make sure to catch the podcast anywhere that podcasts are available. So we have a lot to get to on the show tonight, so we're just going to get straight to it. But first, actually, I have to say thank you to Mr. Tom Benson, who is producing tonight once again.
Well, yeah. I'm a little perplexed today, though.
You're perplexed, yes.
Yes, I am. Normally, when I get on my smartphone, I get maybe, one or two robo-type calls a week. Now I'm getting 2 or 3 every day. How about you?
Really?
Yeah.
No, I'm not getting that many.
So, of course, I never answer it, and I block them right after I check them out on Google. But I can't understand why I'm getting so many all of a sudden.
So there's an app you can download that will help you with this, though.
Is that right? There's an app for everything.
There's an app
except for doing laundry.
Can't wait till that comes out. The app that I use, it's called Hiya. Hiya. It's a caller ID app.
All right.
But it also will block calls that they suspect are spam. So there are a bunch of numbers out there. It doesn't always work, but there are a bunch of numbers out there that are known to be spam on Google and everything.
Sure.
And it'll block it, and it'll say suspect. Or if it doesn't block it, it'll come up and it'll say suspected spam.
It's Yaffee tip for the day, and I'll check it out.
That is the Yaffee tip for the day, and a lot more Yaffee tips coming up in this Yaffee hour, which is much better than happy hour, just so you know. So I have to start off the show with talking about this whole Saudi Arabia situation. Because I don't want to get into all the details because most of you already know it, but you have the killing of that journalist Khashoggi. Got it right there. Khashoggi, who walked into a Saudi consulate in Turkey and never went out. At least did not come out with all of his body parts intact, unfortunately.
Well, did you hear what they did to him?
It's awful.
I know.
It's horrific.
There's a report out that they chopped off his fingers while he was still alive.
Yeah, and then he was screaming, and while he was screaming, they told the people chopping off his body parts, listen to music, so you don't have to hear it.
Gee.
This is a U.S. resident. This is a guy who was living in the U.S. and a journalist for the Washington Post, an American newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
That the Saudis were so bold to do this actually raises a lot of questions in my mind.
Oh, yeah.
But before we get to those questions, the real question is, what should we do about it? What should we do about it? I really haven't heard a decent answer on what we should actually do about this, because both sides make a good point. I mean, you have the left that's bashing Trump, saying he's being too soft, but most presidents are too soft on Saudi Arabia. This is not new to Trump. Obama was soft on Saudi Arabia. Bush was soft on Saudi Arabia after 9/11, when most of the 9/11 hijackers were from Saudi Arabia.
That's right.
This is not new. Reagan was pretty soft on Saudi Arabia, and it's just because mostly we have deals with them dealing with oil. But it's a little bit more complicated now because they also help us against Iran. They also help us against Al-Qaeda and other Islamist factions.
Right.
What do? Do you just become their enemy? Do we just start bombing Saudi Arabia? Obviously, that's not a good idea. But what do you do? Because you can't just let this go by. If the Saudi government was involved, you just can't let this happen. So if anyone has an answer, give me a call, 407-916-5400. And before I get to what some people in Washington are suggesting, Tom, you're a pretty smart guy, I think.
Thank you very much. Yep, that's me.
What should we do?
Well, I think the first thing you do is you withdraw your ambassadors.
Well, that's an interesting idea. I've not heard that.
For a certain amount of time or until things can be worked out. What that means, I have no idea, because I'm stumped too. What do you do? But although I hear from certain pundits out there that they need us more than we need them.
Well, now it seems that way, because what's happening is they're not as dominant on the oil market as they used to be because of the shale revolution, especially here in the U.S. Mm-hmm. They are not as dominant in the oil market. And actually what the new crown prince has been trying to do is reform the country so they can get off being totally dependent on oil, because they realize they can't do that to survive forever in the future. It's not going to help them. So they need us to continue to buy their oil and to continue to do deals with them and to continue to help them with problems in Yemen and other places because of that.
Not only oil, but Saudi Arabia is also the biggest funder of tech startups in California.
Really? I did not know
that.
Yeah,
big investors, big time.
Yeah, I believe it. It makes a lot of sense. So there's a lot going on here that if you're president, it's easy to step back and say, we should do this. But think about it as if you're president of the United States. And there's all of these different factors. Trump has brought up the fact that, okay, we have an arms deal with them that's going to create a lot of jobs dealing with Boeing and Lockheed and other places. And Trump has been about the economy and jobs. What do? Just shut that down? Hurt all those jobs? Hurt those companies? It's not as easy as you think it is when you're actually picturing yourself sitting in the president's chair trying to make this decision. It's not an easy decision to make. But I actually have more questions on this. But first, we have some people in Washington suggesting some ideas. Lindsey Graham, who I feel like Lindsey Graham, I don't know, was a part of some kind of radiation accident like the Hulk, and now has some kind of superpower that has made him stronger and more outgoing and more passionate.
How about that?
So it's Lindsey Hulk now. I don't know. He somehow gained some kind of superhero power. But this is what he said on Fox and Friends earlier, what we should do with the Saudis.
What I would do, I know what I'm going to do. We're going to sanction the hell out of Saudi Arabia. You know, we deal with bad people all the time, but this is in our face. I feel personally offended. They have nothing but contempt for us. Why would you put a guy like me and the president in this box after all the president has done? This guy's got to go. Saudi Arabia, if you're listening, there are a lot of good people you can choose, but MBS has tainted your country and tainted himself.
Okay, so he's saying not only should we sanction the hell out of them, but we should actually work to remove the crown prince there, that he's got to go. So that's a suggestion. I think that's probably what's going to happen. If I had to put money down on something we're actually going to do against the country, that's probably going to be the main thing we do, is we pass some sanctions against them. It'll be kind of a slap on the wrist, and we'll move on. Now, there is something else the Trump administration has done today. Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin has decided to drop out of Saudi Arabia's investment conference. It was supposed to be, Arabia's Davos or whatever. And so that's another thing that the Trump administration has said they're going to do. Now, Rand Paul also has an idea. I have a cut here from Rand Paul. He wants to go even farther than what Lindsey Graham wants to do. Here's what he said.
It's important to remember that Saudi Arabia is the largest state sponsor of radical Islam. They fund tens of thousands of madrasas around the world, Pakistan, India, Indonesia, Philippines, all teaching hatred of America. They've been doing this for decades. They're not our friends. And then look at what they're doing in Yemen. It's a catastrophe, a humanitarian disaster. So this latest episode with killing the journalist is just proof, that we need not to be arming them.
So he says we should stop arming them completely because they are not our friend. I mean, in an ideal setting, in an ideal world, I have to agree with him. They are not our friend. They have not been our friend for a long time. They do basically fund radical Islam across the world. Even if they're not directly funding terrorism, they're funding ideas and spreading the idea of radical Islam around the world. And that is a problem. And they are just bombing people in Yemen indiscriminately. And by the way, I learned this today, Tom Benson. Did you know we help them with that? You know how we help them with that?
We give them arms that they...
Well, we give them arms, but actually we also refuel their jets in the sky. while they're doing this. So that was one suggestion I heard today, that we could stop doing that.
See, the problem here that a lot of people don't realize also is they could turn against us at any time. For example, when in Afghanistan, the Russians were in Afghanistan, we supplied the rebels with weapons, and those same weapons are now being used against us.
Well, yeah, that's another problem. And if they turn against us, how do you live in a world where Saudi Arabia is against us, where Iran's against us, where Turkey's against us? How do you live in this world? It's crazy. It's not. I mean, what Rand Paul says makes a lot of sense in an idealistic way, because, yeah, they're not our friends. They persecute Christians. They persecute freedom of speech. They spread radical Islam across the world. It makes you ask, why are we funding these evil people?
And did you see where recently women were given the right to drive automobiles in?
Yeah.
The thing is, a lot of the people who spearheaded that movement are now disappearing, or are going into hiding.
That's really strange. I don't understand why that is, because they keep telling me that this new crown prince is a reformer, that he wants things like women driving.
He's a man.
He wants power.
That's right.
It's a tough situation. It's a tough part of the world. Honestly, my heart says, let's be with Rand Paul. Let's just stop giving them stuff. But then, let's say Trump does that, stop selling them arms. And then there's all these negative ramifications in the Middle East because of Trump's decision. The left would blame Trump for that. They would. Mm-hmm. So,
and that also could open up the door to Russia?
Well, and that's what Trump said, actually. Yeah. Trump said that a lot of countries wanted that arms deal with Saudi Arabia, Russia, China. So if we pull out of that arms deal, you're right, the Russians are going to come in. They've already come in Syria and Iran and are, helping them out.
That's right.
So they're going to start.
And I'm sure Russia could use the oil.
This is one of those situations where I'm glad I'm not president of the United States.
There you go.
I mean, it really is. Let's take a call here. Let's go to Barbara in Winter Park. Barbara, what do you think about this?
Well, I think it's just terrible, but that isn't the reason I called. I'm calling about when Professor Ford testified. I never heard anything about her mother, father, any siblings.
Okay, Barbara, well, it's like completely off topic. I don't mind you calling, but you got to stay on topic. I thought she had a suggestion on the Saudi Arabia.
The call screener asked that question. She said yes.
Okay, so she bait and switch on us.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
Bait and switch, I don't know. All right, we're going to get back after the break. I do have some questions, though, about this whole Saudi Arabia situation that no one's really... Some people are kind of bringing it up, but something is not right here. Something is not right here, because the fact that the Saudis would do this and how they did this, there's something we don't know in this whole situation. And that kind of bothers me. 407-916-5400. You can text to 23680 where standard message and data rates apply. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
Conscience in your ear telling you the difference between right and wrong. Yaffee is back on the air.
Welcome back to the show. This is Beyond Reason Radio, and we've been talking about the whole situation with Saudi Arabia, the whole situation with the fact that journalist, the Washington Post journalist who was from Saudi Arabia originally, became a U.S. resident, actually feared for his life because of what was going on in the country, and decided he was going to stay in the U.S., went to a Saudi consulate in Turkey, and the evidence is starting to suggest that he was killed during a tough interrogation, and they basically dismembered him and took away his body. I mean, horrific details. Awful. And no doubt if the Saudi government did that, something has to be done. You can't have a country so boldly do something like that in the face of the U.S., kind of like what Lindsey Graham said earlier, that this is so in your face. There has to be ramifications for this. That being said, I do have some questions, because there's a part of me that doesn't understand why the Saudis thought they could get away with this, that no one would notice. I mean, are they just that arrogant That they thought, oh, we could just kill this guy and disappear his body. He's an American resident. He writes for the Washington Post. He's in a different country. And we could just do that and no one would notice? It makes me feel like something else was going on here. That there's something about this whole situation that we don't know about. I'm not saying it necessarily means the Saudi government wasn't involved. I think they were. Maybe it was a rogue agent who took it too far. I mean, we know that the Saudi government has had problems with him for a while because he's basically been a Muslim Brotherhood sympathizer. He's been sort of an Islamist sympathizer in the region, wanting more Islamist revolution in that area, supporting other Islamist revolutions in the Middle East. Who knows what other kind of ties he had that we don't know about, that the Saudis did not like. But I have to admit, I kind of step back and I'm like, even with all that, it's amazing to me that they thought they could get away with this without anyone noticing. So that leaves a couple of options. One, the reason why they thought they could get away with it is they really were arrogant enough to believe that nobody would do anything, that America was never going to do anything against them. That doesn't make us look good. That's why we have to do something against them if the government was involved. The other possibility is maybe the top leaders in the Saudi government did not want it to go that far, did not want to know, maybe just wanted to get some information or something, did not want to know about it. Or there's something else going on here that we don't know. And I don't have the answers to this. But I just find it very difficult to believe that the Saudi government would just order this hit on this guy in another country, and he's a U.S. resident, and they just thought, oh, we'll get away with it. Nothing will happen. It'll be fine. I mean, if they really did just think that, that's a lot of arrogance coming out of that country. What is fueling that arrogance? Is it just the fact that we've never been hard on that country, and now it's just really coming back to bite us? I don't know. But there was something else that I found fascinating, too. It came out when Mike Pompeo, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, went over to Saudi Arabia. He first met with the king there and only met with him for about 15 minutes, which is nothing. Then he met with the crown prince, and they said he met for about 35 to 40 minutes. When I saw that, and I said, these are really short meetings, I said, you know what this tells me? This tells me that he knows exactly what happened. That Secretary Pompeo, and that means President Trump and the Trump administration, knows exactly what happened here. For it to be that quick, and for them to say, look, you need to do something here. And I think Pompeo, I think the Trump administration, and I think the Saudi government, frankly, knows more than they're telling us.
Oh, I'm sure of that, yeah.
And I think they know because those meetings were so quick. If you really are confused and trying to find out the information and trying to work things out, you have a longer meeting than that. The fact that these meetings were so quick tells me that they know exactly what happened. They're just not telling us.
Either we knew exactly what happened and we were confronting them and saying you have to do something about this, or the Saudi Arabian government officials just didn't want to talk about it. And they said, all right, you're not going to talk about it. We're out of here.
Maybe. I don't know. It's just so weird when you see them in the meeting.
Sure.
And Pompeo's like laughing with them and they're all smiles. And I'm just like, something is not right here. I don't know what it is. I mean, obviously something's not right when a guy ends up dismembered and dead and all that. You know, I get that part of it. But I mean, there's even beyond all of that, there's something we don't know that's happening here. A dot we're not connecting that's out there. But in terms of that meeting, it's very interesting. Axios, the website's co-founder, Mike Allen, was on Fox News earlier today, the Daily Briefing with Dana Perino. And he has some inside information of exactly what happened in that meeting with the Crown Prince. And this is what he said.
But behind the scenes, we're told by sources, he told them they needed to hurry, that they only had a few days, whereas on the public stage, and this is Diplo speak, he said that they had a couple days. We're told that behind the scenes, Secretary Pompeo warned the Crown Prince that the kingdom's position on the public stage was at risk, that he needed to own this, and that he needed to take action.
It's kind of exactly what I said, right? That he went in there and he knew exactly what happened. And now he's going in there and he's telling them, basically, Pompeo goes in there and tells them, you need to own this. You need to get this out there immediately. This is hurting you on the world stage. That's more evidence to me that says maybe I was right here. That maybe there is something going on that we don't, either something going on that we don't know about, or that the Trump administration knows exactly what went on, and they're not telling us the whole truth. And that kind of bothers me, although I can understand possibly why they're not. 407-916-5400, text to 23680, where standard message and data rates apply. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
The voice of reason in a world that is beyond reason is back now.
So do you think Elizabeth Warren regrets doing that DNA test yet? Do you think she regrets it? I mean, I don't know. She says she doesn't regret it. And she's still putting stuff out there. And, of course, the media is backing her up in a lot of this.
She's not going to admit it in public that she regrets doing it.
Yeah. Although she put out a campaign video when she did all this. For those who don't know, and if you don't know, I don't know how you cannot know, but Trump forever ago said, had been calling, and still doing it, calling her Pocahontas.
Because she claims that she has Native American ancestry in her blood.
Exactly. And she had used that in the past at jobs and certain things. Mm-hmm. And Trump always mocked her. That's why he called her Pocahontas, not to mock Native Americans, but to mock her, because he figured she was lying, because there seemed to be a lot of evidence that she was, or at least was not, even was ignorant about it or something. But so earlier this week, she came out with a DNA test, and she thought she won because it showed she was part Native American. And it showed that she is either, 1.5% Native American to 0.09%. Also showed that she's 98.5% to 99.1% white, which of course is a problem for the Democrat Party. Of course is a problem. But let's stick with Elizabeth Warren, because she still put out a video. And at the end of the video, she still kind of tries to use this to attack Trump. This is what she said.
Some people have questioned my heritage and my family history. Maybe they do it to insult me. Maybe they do it to distract from the kinds of changes I'm fighting for and the kind of change I'm trying to bring to Washington. Maybe they do it because they think politics is a blood sport. But my parents were real people. The love they shared, the struggles they endured, the family they built, the story they lived will always be etched on my heart.
So when she puts out in this video, they will always be etched in my heart. When she puts out this video, she makes it seem like that this was just a story she heard. And she happened to mention that a couple of times. That no, she never said she was a part of a tribe or anything and didn't use this. That this was just kind of a family story and that's it. Except that doesn't seem to be the whole case. In fact, a Cornell law professor who has been studying this for a while, his name's Bill Jacobson. He was on Tucker Carlson's show earlier this week, and he had pointed out that this is much more than just, it's just a family story I shared, and maybe I didn't know the whole truth. I just, assumed it was correct, and that's it. Not according to what Bill says. This is what Bill said.
It would be beyond reason not to listen to Yaffee on your TuneIn radio app. Download the app today and search Beyond Reason Radio.
Ancestry. She did not claim it when she was a child. She didn't claim it for college. She didn't claim it for law school. She only claimed it when she was in her late 30s and beginning to climb the law school ladder, the law professor ladder from the University of Texas to Harvard. That's the only time she's ever claimed it. She never affiliated with Native Americans. She never helped Native Americans. She was never a faculty advisor for Native Americans. She got herself listed as Native American so she could be declared a minority law professor and She did that when she was climbing the ladder, and we know why she did that. She can say whatever she wants, but everybody understands this is a woman who built her political narrative claiming that other people are rigging the system. She tried to rig her career by claiming a status to which she's not entitled.
Well.
So here's my question then, though. Looking at the big picture, as I always do. Why was she so determined to do this? Why was this so important to her? Why is this so important to anyone that she might have some Native American heritage? Why? Well, as soon as this story came out and it started to become known that this was really backfiring on Elizabeth Warren, I mean, when you have editorials in CNN.com from Native Americans blasting her for this, you know she has a problem. But I tweeted out in response right after this, I had said, when you live by identity politics, you also die by identity politics. And that's what's happening here. The left and the Democrat Party, and I'm not the only one saying this, obviously, but they have become so obsessed with identity politics that she had to have something. You can't just be a white woman. It used to be enough to be a woman and be a part of identity politics, but that's not good anymore. Because now women, white women are part of the patriarchy now, Tom. After this whole Kavanaugh thing, now white women are being blamed.
Oh yeah,
yeah. It's white. It's not just white men anymore. White women are the problem, and so she has an issue because she wants to run for president, and she wants to be known in the Democrat Party. Well, you can't run for president in the Democrat Party anymore, and just be white. No, you have to have something. You have to be a victim of something. And you have to be a different race somehow because that's more important than who you are as an individual. So that's why this happened. That's why this is so important to her. But I was thinking about this too. I was like, are we ever going to come to a place, not only in this country, but in mankind, where we focus on the individual and the character of the individual more than our race?
No.
Or our tribe?
No.
I don't think we can as men.
Because they want to cater to the people who have sympathy and would vote for them.
Yeah, but I mean, this is a problem even beyond America. You're right. Politics, that's what it is. It's all about divide and conquer. You go to one group, you've convinced that group they're a victim of another group to get that first group's votes. That's what it is. It's the divide and conquer strategy. It's been going on forever. But I feel like it's a problem in the world throughout history that we just cannot come to a place where we identify ourselves as an individual based on our own individual character and ideas. We have to and this is why there's so much polarization in the world and in this country today too, because we have identified ourselves based on the group we're a part of instead of our individual. It really shouldn't matter what her ancestry is or whatever. And she could say, oh, Trump brought it up. No, she started this. As Bill Jacobson pointed out in that sound cut, she's the one who started this whole controversy. She's the one who pushed this lie, and she did it for political reasons and for power. But I just wish, this is why, one reason why conservatism appeals to me. When I say conservatism, I'm talking about small government, individual liberty conservatism, not the alt-right. The alt-right's obsessed with race too, unfortunately. But one thing that always appealed to me about conservatism is it's focused more on the individual. Because, I don't know much about my heritage. Do you know a lot about your heritage, Tom Benson?
I would not say I know the big picture. I know the big story. I don't know the little.
I know very little. I've heard because my dad didn't really know his dad. My mom was adopted, didn't really know her dad. There's so much missing in my family heritage. I'd have to do Ancestry.com or whatever to figure it out. But there's a lot I don't know. I know Yaffee. I did not learn Yaffee was an actual Hebrew word until college in my modern Judaism class. That's when I learned it. I had no idea it was a Jewish name and that I have like Jewish roots somewhere because of the last name. Yeah, I didn't know until college. It was never a part of me. I got my identity. I never let my heritage define me. And that was one thing always appealed to me about conservatism, but it also appealed to me about America, because America, you don't have to be defined by your heritage. You don't have to be defined by your race. That's not what America is about. America was supposed to be about defining yourselves based on your individual characteristics. and your individual gifts and your individual qualities
into the big melting pot.
Yeah, the melting pot. Exactly.
But now it's the big D is diversity, strength through diversity. But that doesn't unite us. That moves us in different directions.
And diversity, and you're exactly right. And when they say diversity, they're not talking about diversity of thought. They're not talking about diversity of skills. They're not talking about diversity of beliefs. They're talking about diversity of race. They're talking about diversity of language. They're talking about that kind of diversity. Except diversity between male and female. No, the males and females have to be the same. I'm going to get to that more in a second.
Well, yes and no.
I don't even know. It gets more confusing every day when I think about it. But America should be about your individual qualities. When Elizabeth Warren, if she wants to run for president, she should just be running on the fact that she has ideas that are best for the country. But you can't in the Democrat Party. You just can't do it. And unfortunately, I think a lot of Republicans make this mistake too. In politics, we make this mistake because we always think about these things. I know there's people out there thinking, Nikki Haley, I would really want her to run for president because we could use a woman being president. That comes into your mind sometimes. Now, I like Nikki Haley because of who she is as an individual. She would be amazing.
Absolutely.
But there's some people out there calculating how this all works, and because we define ourselves based on our sexuality or based on our gender or based on our race, that we have to think about it that way. That's not how it should be. It's not what I always thought of as individual liberty. This is why I always lean more libertarian, because that's how libertarians think more than anything. And I just want to point out, this is why the alt-right is dangerous, that part of the right, because they are also obsessed with race. They have a white nationalist viewpoint of the world. And by the way, they like big government. A lot of alt-righters, they like big government. They just like big government for white Americans. But they still like it. They just don't want it for anyone else. That's basically the only difference. But it was just something I was thinking about. I'm just I'm just sitting here and I'm like, are we ever going to move past race in this country? I don't think we can. 407-916-5400. Text to 23680. Before we go to break, I do want to mention one little thing. It came out this week that the national debt, the deficit, the debt's obviously going up, but the deficit is hitting record levels. It's at $779 billion. Nothing, whatever. And there's been a whole bunch of talk about why this is happening. Why is this happening? And everyone's blaming the tax cuts for this. But I heard Mitch McConnell, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, if you could skip to that cut, Tom Benson, and he was interviewed on Bloomberg, and he was asked about this as well. And I actually think he got kind of blasted for this, but I actually think he makes a decent point. This is what he said.
It's very disturbing, and it's driven by the three big entitlement programs that are very popular: Medicare, Social Security, and Medicaid. That's 70% of what we spend every year. The subject we were just discussing, the funding of the government, is about 30% of what we spend. There's been a bipartisan reluctance to tackle entitlement changes because of the popularity of those programs. Hopefully, at some point here, we'll get serious about this. We haven't been yet.
And it would appear, if you kind of look at the tea leaves, that divided government might actually yield to entitlement reform, or at least make it easier.
Well, we had that opportunity during the Obama years, and I talked to President Obama about it a number of times. It would have been the perfect time to do it. Think of Reagan and Tip O'Neill coming together in the early 80s to raise the age for Social Security. It took it out of the political arena and made it possible for it to be successful. That's what we had the chance to do during the Obama years, because we had divided government for 6 of his 8 years. Unfortunately, it was not achieved.
I mean, he's right that if you're looking at the big picture of the national debt, you are not going to be able to help solve the problem of the national debt without dealing with the big entitlements, like Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. That's just the reality.
You'll have a lot of people who would disagree on Social Security being an entitlement.
Yeah, I know, because we pay
into it for 40, 45 years of your working career. And a lot of people who die before they even apply for it, that money goes where,
Here's the problem with that, though. Mm-hmm. The biggest problem with that is most people now who are receiving benefits are receiving more than they paid in. You're not getting exactly what you paid in. People think it's almost like a trust fund where you get in and you get exactly what you paid. It's not how it works.
Well, you know, who really knows the figures? Because as you're paying in for 40, 45 years, there's interest being accrued on what you pay in, or there should be, and that should go back into your pot.
There's so many misconceptions about Social Security and how that all works, because
thank you, FDR.
It's not, because people think of it like you said, it's kind of like a trust fund where they go in and they invest it. That's not how it works at all. They go in, the surplus goes into the trust fund, but the trust fund pays that surplus out in treasury bonds, and the government spends that on other things, and they have to do that by law. But it's all, I mean, whatever you want to call it, an entitlement, whatever, a government insurance program, it's still going to be a problem. You're not going to be able to solve the national debt without dealing with it.
Well, we can still come up with $17 million in hush money for a congressman who get into hanky-panky.
Well, yeah, that's true, although that's really just a drop in the bucket. But, I mean, in terms of, they're saying that the tax cuts here are the facts. The overall government revenue right now is about flat. It's about the same as last year, even with tax cuts. The corporate tax revenue is a lot lower. They're receiving less this year because of the corporate tax cuts than they did last year. Now, the corporate tax revenue makes up a very small percentage of the revenue the government gets, and a lot of people don't want to mention that. But individual tax revenue has gone up. That means more people, because the economy is doing well, more people are paying taxes, and that means the government revenue goes up. That's why tax cuts work, because it grows the economy. The Democrats are arguing that if we never did the tax cuts, the government would be receiving more money. And here's the problem with their argument. They're assuming that the economy would still be this good right now, even if we didn't do the tax cuts. I am not convinced of that. I think the economy, one big reason that the economy is growing a lot more than a lot of people expected is because of the tax cuts. But you know what? I think maybe the problem is spending, because what are tax cuts? Tax cuts are allowing you to keep more of your own money. In a free society, you should be allowed to keep more of your own money, especially these companies who are paying some of the highest corporate tax rates in the world. They should be allowed to keep more of their own money. So if the government doesn't have enough money, then maybe they should cut spending instead of wanting to get it from the people. All right, I have much more to get to on the show today. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
Download the iHeartRadio app and catch the Beyond Reason Radio podcast. Your voice of truth in a world of fake news. Beyond Reason Radio continues right now.
So, of course, we have to talk about Keira Knightly. By the way, this is Beyond Reason Radio. You want to talk about Beyond Reason. What Keira Knightly said on The Ellen Show is definitely Beyond Reason. But this is Beyond Reason Radio. We've been on since 8 p.m. We're on until 9 p.m. We only have a short bit of the show left to go. But if you miss any of the show, make sure to catch the podcast anywhere podcasts are available. So let's just get to it. Keira Knightly was on Ellen's show, and she was asked about her daughter. And apparently she bans her daughter from watching certain movies. No, it's not, the new Halloween movie or some horror movie or some gory movie or smutty movie. No. It's Disney movies. Here's what she said.
And she's banned from seeing certain children's movies, right?
Yeah.
What are they?
Cinderella, banned, because, she waits around for a rich guy to rescue her. Don't rescue yourself, obviously.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And this is the one that I'm quite annoyed about, because I really like the film, but Little Mermaid. I mean, the songs are great, but do not give your voice up for a man. Hello? Wow. Oh, so yes.
Okay, so first off, I just want to say, I don't think Cinderella really waited around. She was kind of rescued by a prince, but
I think the issue is that she's kissed by a man without consent, consent.
That's Snow White.
Oh.
That was another story.
Oh, well, that's true, too. All right, you're right.
Somebody else
I get them confused. I was in... My gender was fluid at that time, and I don't remember these things.
No, that was Snow White. No, she was saying Cinderella because, she's waiting around to be rescued by a rich man or whatever. Yeah. And then, of course, Little Mermaid because she wanted to find love. How dare a woman want to give up her voice to find love? How could she do such a thing? But here's the thing. I really want to talk about this. I understand why feminists like her want to push this narrative, but I don't think they realize the damage they are doing to men in this country. And what I mean is specifically young men, young boys, because we used to teach young men and boys to be heroes that would protect women. Isn't that a good thing for society to teach boys to be that? To be heroes, to inspire them to be heroes and want to rescue women and help the vulnerable among us? Isn't that a good thing we're teaching? We are now taking that away of our society. What are the damaging effects that's going to have on boys in this culture? You are taking away the purpose and meaning of a lot of men. And I talk to girls all the time. And one of their complaints about, trying to find men in the dating field is that there are no men. They don't know how to be men because they weren't taught to be men. Instead, they act like children, and the women have to do all the work. And the women say, I want them to be men. But they're not taught. We're not taught. We're afraid to be men. Because we don't want to teach, you can't teach a guy that he can rescue a woman. Why not? Isn't that good for society? For men to sacrifice themselves for the ones they love? And the women they love? Shouldn't that be a good thing? Shouldn't that be a virtue? But it's not. I don't think feminists like this realize what they're doing to our culture. And it's one reason why we're going to continue to have problem with young men in this country, in our culture. All right, I only have a minute here. But I did want to end the show with things, of course, that made Yaffee laughy. Yes, things that made Yaffee laughy. Of course, it comes from our friends, the Babylon Bee. I have 4 different things, but I'll just read one of them today. According to the Babylon Bee, the mafia requests to no longer be called the mob because of negative association with political activists. Says at a private event, representatives of various organized crime groups came forward to request that the press stop referring to them as the mob because of the negative connotation of the word thanks to recent political events. So they now think of people mindlessly screeching about some red versus blue political nonsense. No one even understands what those people want, while we in the mafia are very clear about what we want. Money. So he said, we demand respect. So if you care about your input in politics, you better stop calling us the mob, because otherwise you're going to get whacked. And then you'll be dead and won't have any choice in politics. You'll definitely be voting Democrat. All right. Oh, the Babylon Bee. Always great stuff. All right. I appreciate you listening to the show today. If you missed any of the show, catch the podcast anywhere podcasts are available. You can also catch it on Facebook Live or like the Beyond Reason Radio Facebook page or follow me on Twitter at Beyond Reason R. And, well, catch you guys next time.